Obviously, I mean, if you look at just the geography or the topography of the Dungeness Valley, the river is the main artery, and it provides water for development, provides water for agriculture, provides water for species and critters that live on the river, and so the challenge is to balance that.
The long-term goal is to recover fish to harvestable levels, and it's been 30 years since anybody at the tribe has been able to harvest a Chinook out of the river, and that's sad.
I know every river has its people. It's so important. You'd think that it'd be just in words, but no, it isn't. It's in spirit too. And it's deep within your stele, your soul. And it's something that you can't grow out of, you can't grow into, because it's there. It's just there.
I mean, we always have our grandkids in mind when we do anything, buy groceries or get involved in land trust easements.
The Dungeness River flows from the tops of the Olympic Mountains down through the Sequim Valley and empties into the Strait of Juan at Dungeness Spit. Along with its tributary, the Grey Wolf River, they drain an area of almost 270 square miles.
I live in the watershed, so I like to think about the watershed as not just what happens in and right next to the river, but everything that happens upstream as well. And so it affects whether there are salmon, wildlife, safe places for people to live, shellfish in Dungeness Bay, and all the things that make this a nice place to live.
And since I've been on the peninsula for the last 35 years, I've lived on the river or near the river, the Dungeness River, down in the lower part of the river, down by the old schoolhouse. Both as a landowner and as a policymaker, and now as a state legislator, the river and the strength of that ecosystem has been important to me. Certainly when you're talking about people's property and maybe their major investment in their life, there's some concern. That can be threatening. But in the end, I think it should not be threatening, and I think if people engage in the process, they'll find that out.
I'm a veterinarian that's lived here since 1991, and my wife and I are the very happy owners of 5 acres, which includes 1.5 acres of riparian property along the Dungeness River. We purchased it probably in 1992 and put it with the land trust for a combination conservation and agricultural easement. The most important part of what we wanted to save is this riparian area, of which we're standing right in the middle. This is a side channel of the Dungeness River, which is where coho and king salmon overwinter, which is critical to their life cycle. So this is a very important part of a river for the salmon that breed in the main stem.
Dungeness Farms is the property at the very mouth of the Dungeness River. The club owns about 50 acres on each side of the river. We started getting involved more out of, probably more out of fear. I think we learned also that people saw us as mysterious. It was a good learning for everyone, I think. We were able to express who we were, and we were able to learn a lot about the other issues, and that, here we are 20-some years later, and we're still learning, but it's been great for us to participate. I do remember telling Randy Johnson right off the bat, I said, well, if you can show me that it's good for ducks, then, we will proceed ahead. And sure enough, Randy was able to convince me that opening up some fresh water, getting some fresh water into that estuary tidal exchange in that back area was going to be good for ducks, and he was right on the money.
Just a few miles to the west of the Dungeness River, on McDonald Creek, the Jamestown, Sklallam, and Elwha tribes teamed up with local landowners like Paul Macbeth and came up with a creative way to help restore the stream.
You're looking down across my property at some salmon habitat. project work that we did. Large woody debris that were brought in under a federal grant with joint work between the landowners here and the two tribes, the Elwha and the Jamestown, to build these projects to create the pools for the smolts. This is a type of project I think that's pretty new to most people, at least most of the new residents in the valley. And so what I did is went and knocked door to door and talked to people and introduced themselves as a new neighbor and told them I had an opportunity to do some work on the creek that would not only help the creek and the salmon, but it would increase their property values and it would make things you know, just nicer down here to come and enjoy. And people were receptive. It was pretty easy sale. It was a good opportunity to get to know the neighbors, and we did the initial project here with 5 lots, and then after that was done, the neighbors downstream saw what we'd done, and they let us come in with the next batch of money that the tribe was able to get, and we did a fairly large project down there, and I've seen the neighbors down here quite often since then.
Well, over the course of the years that I worked on the Dungeness, it seemed like we were working on layer after layer of what was potentially contributing to the problems in the river. And it turned out that it was pretty much everything. At first we thought it was just a lack of water, but then it became clear that various levees and restrictions were destabilizing the river, that building next to the river was potentially harmful to the salmon as well as to the landowners themselves. So the main thing was just to start getting out there and talking to the landowners. Again, over a period of time, the people who live along the river get to know the river themselves.
Figuring out how to work together to fix the damage caused by dikes along the river has been one of the biggest challenges to restoring the watershed.
It's interesting, the Dungeness was settled before Washington was a state. So our property lines were actually the middle of the river. And they moved as however the river migrated, but with the constriction of the dikes, we became more and more in harm's way for flooding because there wasn't enough room for the river to dissipate its energy at high flows. So the dikes have to be moved back. My property happened to be right in sort of the gun barrel of that energy. And we debated for years and years because it's really enjoyable, as any landowner knows, to live on the river and hear the river and enjoy the water from the river. But as we looked at the designs that were going to adjust the levees and give the river more room, that would have put us in a very odd sort of spot with dikes surrounded by us. And in the end, we decided to sell our property to give the river more room.
Rivers need room to move. Floodplains of rivers are like the lungs of a river system. And so during a flood, those lungs, those floodplains breathe in water. And then as the flood recedes, they slowly release that water. And when we cut those floodplains off by building dikes, we give them emphysema. And they just do not function well at all. And it causes problems to not only to fish, but causes problems to people who live downstream as well.
Most of the property owners, I would say, wanted to work with the tribe and the state fisheries biologists. And then you have the extraordinary property owners who were willing to donate conservation easements, do these proactive projects on their property, not necessarily related to flood control, but just because there were opportunities there for improved planting or log jams or so forth.
Well, an easement means a lot of things and can mean different things to different people. These easements are an agreement between the land trust and the property owners that actually retire the development rights on a piece of property. So it's basically a conservation easement. We still own the property. We listed everything we want to do on the property in our agreement, our easement agreement, and we have full use of the property, except for what we agreed not to do. It's always easier for me to talk to people about land trusts and putting their property in an easement because I've already done it.
Starting in the mid-19th century, trees and logs were removed by settlers. Revegetating riverbanks with native plants and trees and installing engineered log jams and stream channels are ways to help the river regain some of the structure and habitat that was lost.
I think maintaining vegetation along the river rather than a green lawn down to the riverbank is a really important thing landowners can do. And the Conservation District has lots of educational programs on helping people be stewards.
The irrigation community is the largest user of Dungeness River water. In the past, their rights to Dungeness River surface water exceeded actual river flow for many months of the year. Over the past 2 decades, agricultural water users have made improvements to their infrastructure and practices and have signed agreements to reduce their water withdrawals.
Obviously, the tribes that have been here for a long time, their treaty rights and the Endangered Species Act provides them quite a bit of standing as far as resolving these issues. But I think those of us that are involved in policy making can't ignore the development issues and the agricultural issues.
I'm a dairy farmer here in Sequim, and my family's been farming here since about 1933. You know, I feel like it's a community resource, right? And it's a community effort to manage, to maintain, to protect, and to utilize that resource well. So one advantage that our community has been way out in front on in the state and probably in the nation is our ability to cooperate, our ability to sit down with the tribal community, with the Department of Ecology, with the agriculture users and community members, and find reasonable solutions to move forward and get all our needs met. And there's so many other communities that are spending time in court, wasting, money in just unproductive ways, not even, starting to get back to solving the problem. So I think that attitude sets our community way ahead, and I would hope that, folks coming into the community will be, receptive and want to promote that and help foster that, because, if we all work together heading in the same direction, we can do a lot of good things.
I just think it's really important that we all work together, that we lay down trees that we might have pulled out by mistake and realized it, and we try to put them back for the health of for the egg and all the rest. We must try to get those tributaries that used to flow. We must repopulate that, because we don't want only the Jamestown to benefit. We want everyone to benefit as they do right now.
But I see good things with what's going on. Giving the river more floodplain and letting it have room to heal itself is going to be a real plus too.
Well, I think it has improved their property value. There's nothing here that can hurt anything, and so I think everybody's for salmon. I can't imagine that you wouldn't be.
Well, my hopes for the river and our property is that they continue to be improved upon. Our property, you can't really improve on perfection. The river needs a little more help.